At Paris, just after dark, one gusty evening, I was enjoying the company of my friend, Auguste Dupont, in his little back library. For an hour at least, we had maintained a profound silence, when the door of our apartment was thrown open and admitted our old acquaintance, Monsieur G., the prefect of the Parisian police. We gave him hearty welcome, for we had not seen him for several years. He said he had called to ask the opinion of my friend about some official business which had occasioned a great deal of trouble. "And what is the difficulty now?" I asked. "Well, the fact is, we have all been a good deal puzzled, because the affair is so simple, yet baffles us altogether." "Perhaps it is the very simplicity of the thing which puts you at fault." "Oh, what nonsense to talk! Perhaps the monsieur is a little too plain." "Oh, good heavens! Who ever heard of such an idea?" "And what, after all, is the matter on hand?" I asked. "Well, I have received certain personal information that a document of the last importance has been purloined from the royal apartments. The individual who purloined it is known. He was seen to take it, and it is known also that it still remains in his possession." "Well, how is this known?" "The thief is the Minister D, and the power thus attained has, for some months past, been wielded for political purposes to a very dangerous extent. So, my first care was to make a thorough search of his hotel without his knowledge. For 3 months a night has not passed during the greater part of which I have not been engaged, personally, in ransacking the hotel." "Suppose you detail," said I, "the particulars of your search." "Well, the fact is, we took our time, and we searched everywhere. I took the entire building, room by room, devoting the nights of an entire week to each. We examined first the furniture of each apartment. The cushions we probed with the ling needles, which you have seen me employ, and we examined the rungs of every chair in the hotel by the aid of a most powerful microscope. When we had absolutely completed every particle of furniture in this way, we moved on to the house itself, including the 2 houses immediately adjoining, with the microscope as before." "The 2 houses adjoining? You must have had a great deal of trouble." "Oh, we had, but the reward offered is prodigious." "Then, you've been making a miscalculation, and the letter is not upon the premises as you suppose." "Yes, I fear you are right there. And now, Dupont, what would you advise me to do?" To make a thorough research of the premise." "That is absolutely needless. I am sure that the letter is not at the hotel." "I have no better advice to give you," said Dupont. And here the prefect took his departure, more entirely depressed in spirits than I have ever known the good gentleman before. In about a month afterward, he paid another visit. "Well, G, what of the purloined letter?" "Well, I made the re-examination as Dupont suggested, and it was all labor lost, as I knew it would be." "Which was the reward offered, did you say?" "Why, a very, very great deal. Don't like to say how much precisely, but one thing I will say, I wouldn't mind giving my individual check for 50,000 francs to anyone who could obtain me that letter." "In that case," replied Dupont, opening a drawer and producing a checkbook, "you may as well fill me up a check for the amount mentioned. When you have signed it, I will hand you the letter." I was astonished. The prefect appeared absolutely thunderstricken. He seized a pen, and after several pauses and vacant stares, finally filled up and signed a check for 50,000 francs, and handed it across the table to Dupont. The latter examined it carefully, and depositing it in his checkbook, and then unlocking an escritoire, took thence a letter and gave it to the prefect. He grasped it, cast a rapid glance at its contents, and then, scrambling and struggling to the door, rushed at length from the house. When he had gone, my friend entered into some explanations. The Parisian police are exceedingly able in their way. Thus, when the prefect detailed us his mode of searching the premises at the Hotel D, I felt entire confidence in his having made a satisfactory investigation. So far as his labors extended. Yes, the measures were good in their kind and well executed. Their defect lay in their being inapplicable to the case, and to the man. The more I reflected upon the daring, dashing, and discriminating ingenuity of D, the more satisfied I became that, to conceal the letter, the minister had resorted to the most sagacious experiment of all, not concealing it. Full of these ideas, I called one fine morning to the ministerial hotel. I complained of weak eyes and lamented the necessity of a pair of green spectacles, under cover of which I cautiously and thoroughly surveyed the whole apartment, while seemingly only content upon the conversation of my host. At length, my eyes fell upon a card rack of pasteboard that hung dangling by a dirty blue ribbon just beneath the middle of the mantelpiece. In this rack, which had 3 or 4 compartments, were 5 or 6 visiting cards and a solitary letter. The last was much soiled and crumpled. No sooner had I glanced this letter than I concluded it to be that of which I was in search. I bade the minister good morning, and took my departure at once, leaving a gold snuff-box upon the table. The next morning I called for the snuff-box. While engaged in conversation, however, a large report, as if that is of a pistol, was heard immediately beneath the windows of the hotel, and was succeeded by the shoutings of a terrified mob. The disturbance in the street had been occasioned by a man with a musket, a man in my own pay. D rushed to the casement, threw it open, and looked out. I stepped to the card rack, took the letter, and put it in my pocket. As I said before, perhaps the mystery was a little too plain.